Hello, Mrs. Gargan's third and fourth graders. Well, congratulations, you made it to the end of the school year. For some of you, it's been challenging. For some of you, it hasn't been too challenging, but you made it and it's summertime. And I apologize for missing a couple of weeks of reading to you. I will make it up. And I would like to know if some of you would like to continue receiving videos. I'm happy to continue doing them over the summer. I know I spoke to Bella, and she and some of the others are hoping maybe we can do something under the tent at the library outside, socially distant, of course. So there, and we're also going to kick off the summer reading program. You and your families will be hearing more about that in the next couple of days. So I hope we stay in touch, but do let me know if you would like to continue to have me do some stories. So I need a little drink. Lots been going on past couple of weeks, as you know. Some unrest in this country. And for some of the reasons we spoke about during Black History Month, things that have changed. And we spoke about things that where protests brought about change. We had some good discussions. Some of you are moving on to fifth grade, and your third graders are moving up to fourth grade. And I know you're very smart, so some of the books I'm going to read today require you being as mature as you are. But some are going to be a little on a lighter side. I'm going to share a broad array of stories for you. So, and it has to do with being human, being kind. And I know that you are, and very thoughtful. And I was so impressed, I have to say this again, that Jacoby and Paul and the rest of you really took very seriously the book that we read about the sit-in, the Woolworth counter, lunch counter sit-in, to stand up for rights. And this is what people are doing right now all across the country, all across the world. So here we go. First book is called Each Kindness, an award-winning book by Jacqueline Woodson. Okay. You see a little girl all by herself there, head down, thinking. Do you think she's happy? Maybe not. Maybe yes. Maybe she's just thinking. There's an empty desk. Someone wasn't in school. Okay, we're starting out in winter. The winter. That winter, snow fell on everything, turning the world a brilliant white. One morning, as we settled into our seats, the classroom door opened, and the principal came in. She had a girl with her, and she said to us, "This is Maya." Maya's looking down. How do you think she feels? Some of you said nervous, a little frightened. Some of you have had the experience of being new to the school, new to Lee Kellogg, and I hope that you found that your classmates welcomed you. Maya looked down at the floor. I think I heard her whisper, "Hello." We all stared at her. Her coat was open, and the clothes beneath it looked old and ragged. Her shoes were spring shoes, not meant for the snow. A strap on one of them had broken. Our teacher, Ms. Albert, said, "Say good morning to our new student." But most of us were silent. The only empty seat was next to me, and that's where our teacher put Maya. And on that first day, Maya turned to me and smiled. But I didn't smile back. I moved my chair, myself, and my books a little further away from her. When she looked my way, I turned to the window and stared out at the snow. And every day after that, when Maya came into the classroom, I looked away and I didn't smile back. My best friends that year were Kendra and Sophie. At lunchtime, we walked around the schoolyard, our fingers laced together, whispering secrets in each other's ears. One day, while we were near the slide, Maya came over to us. She held open her hand to show us the shiny jacks and tiny red ball that she'd gotten for her birthday. Do some of you know the game of jacks? With the ball, and you throw the ball up and you try to scoop up a number of jacks, many as you can. Okay, well, first you start with one, then two, and it gets harder and harder, of course. It's a high bouncer, she said. But none of us wanted to play with her. So Maya played all by herself. That afternoon, when we got back into the classroom, Maya whispered to me, "Bet you can't guess who the new Jacks champion of the world is." Behind me, so there's Maya, there's me, and there's Andrew. And Andrew whispered, "Chloe's got a new friend. Chloe's got a new friend." She's not her name is Chloe. She said, "She's not my friend," I whispered back. The weeks passed. Every day we whispered about Maya. We laughed at her clothes, her shoes, the strange food that she brought for lunch. Some days Maya held out her hand to show us what she had brought to school: a deck of cards, pick-up sticks, a small tattered doll. Whenever she asked us to play, we said, "You got it." We all said, "No." The days grew warmer, like they've done since I last did a story with you. It's gotten very warm. Finally put away my winter coat, and here we are at school, in the schoolyard. Spring. The days grew warmer and warmer. The pond thawed. Grass began to grow where snow had once been. One day Maya came to school wearing a pretty dress and fancy shoes. But the shoes and the dress looked like they'd belonged to another girl before Maya. So I've worn a lot of things that belong to other people. I bet you have too. Brothers, sisters, cousins, thrift shop. "I have a new name for her," Kendra whispered. "Never new. Everything she has comes from a second-hand store." We all laughed. Maya stood by the fence. She was holding a jump rope but did not come over to ask us if we wanted to play. After a while, she folded it, double rolled the ends around each hand, and started jumping. She jumped all around the schoolyard without stopping. She didn't look up once. She jumped and jumped and jumped and jumped. The next day, Maya's seat was empty. In class that morning, we were talking about kindness. Ms. Albert had brought a big bowl into the class and filled it with water. We all gathered around her desk and watched her drop a small stone into it. Tiny waves rippled out away from the stone. "This is what kindness does," Miss Albert said. "Each little thing we do goes out like a ripple into the world." Oh, kind of like kindness spreading. And then Miss Albert let us each drop the stone in as we told her what kind things that we had done. Joseph had held the door for his grandmother. Kendra helped change her baby brother's diaper. Even mean old Andrew had done something. "I carried teacher's books up the stairs," he said. And Miss Albert said that it was true. I stood there holding Miss Albert's rock in my hand, silent. Even small things count, Miss Albert said gently. I couldn't think of anything, so I passed the stone on. Maya didn't come to school the next day, or the day after that. Each morning I walked to school slowly, hoping this would be the day that Maya returned and that she'd look at me and smile. And I promised myself this would be the day. Exactly, I heard some of you say that, or I knew that you said it, that I smiled back. Each kindness, Miss Albert had said, makes the whole world a little bit better. There's a wonderful book called 100 Dresses that this reminds me of that was written a long time ago about a girl, probably an immigrant girl, maybe like Maya, came from another country. Family didn't have much. She wore old clothes and how people treated her. It's a great story. I'll probably share that with you this summer. But Maya's seat remained empty, and one day Miss Albert announced to the class that Maya would not be coming back. Her family had to move away, Miss Albert said. And then she told us to take out our notebooks, that it was time for spelling. That afternoon, I walked home alone. And when I reached the pond, my throat filled with all the things that I wish I had said to Maya. Each kindness I had never shown her. I threw small stones into it over and over, watching the way the water rippled out, away and away, like each kindness, done and not done, like every girl somewhere, or every boy, holding a small gift out to someone, and that someone turning away from it. I guess you all would agree that she regrets not being nicer. I watched the water ripple as the sun set through the maples, and the chance of kindness with Maya became more and more forever gone. And that was the end of this story. These are the authors. The author and illustrator, Jacqueline Woodson and E.B. Lewis. So, do you think that the next time Chloe met a new person in class or had a chance that she was going to show more kindness? I hope you said yes. Okay. A quick poem that I'm sharing with everybody today. My littlest storytime friends, you middle K12. And the title of this poem is Friends. And it's just a fun poem. Friends come in all colors, sizes, and shapes. Friends share their jump ropes, and friends share their grapes. That's a cool sign for grapes. They like the same jokes, and they like the same shows. They lend you their ear, and they lend you their clothes. A world without friends, I don't think I could bear it. Life is much better with good friends to share it. I think that's a poem for everybody. Okay, I want you to close your eyes. Don't cheat. Okay, close your eyes. Ready? I have a basket. And in this basket are crayons. Can you picture what a crayon looks like? Okay, I'll show you one. Here's one. Obviously, you know what a crayon looks like. And that's melon color. Okay, close your eyes. Close your eyes. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to ask you to guess the color that I'm holding up. Close your eyes, though. Don't look. You can visualize what the crayon looks like, right? With your eyes closed. Open your eyes. It was green. Now, you might have guessed green. It might have been a lucky guess. Let's do it one more time. Okay, close your eyes. I have to check the color. This is a fancy color. Oh, okay. I don't know if you'll guess this one. Okay, close your eyes. Holding up a crayon. You can picture what a crayon looks like without opening your eyes, but can you picture the color? Don't think so. Okay, open your eyes. This is called Purple Mountain's Majesty. Okay. This is a very old book. I'll tell you when it was written. It was written in 1946. And the title of the book is My Eyes Have a Cold Nose. What animal is that? It's a dog. And dogs have cold noses, right? Cold and wet. And that means they're healthy. But my eyes have a cold nose? What does that mean? Wait a minute. This person is blind. And who is his eyes? The dog is his eyes. Okay. This is a passage in the book that I want to share with you. So, no pictures. Listen up and think about guessing crayon colors with your eyes closed. Okay, so this is about a journalist, a newspaper reporter who went blind. He wasn't always blind, he went blind. And at this point in the story, kind of toward the end of the book, he's walking down the street. He lives in New York. This is New York in 1946. Returning to my story, one noon I was walking up 53rd Street on my way to the restaurant that I usually frequent for lunch. I heard a genial hail and it turned out to be someone I only knew as Billy, the office boy at a publishing house where I am acquainted. I said hello in return and we fell into step. He was going to lunch too, and I suggested that he join me. Billy hesitated and then asked, "Are you sure they'll serve me?" Why do you think he's asking that? I think some of you guessed. Is Billy black? Mm-hmm. And in this book they use, because it's written in 1946, they use the word Negro that is not used anymore. So I'm just going to sub out black. Of course, I answered. Why shouldn't they? The next few moments were the most profoundly embarrassing I ever passed. Billy had to tell me a fact about himself of which I was completely unaware, that he was black. My embarrassment arose in an instant as soon as I realized the predicament in which I had placed him. I didn't know if the place where I frequented for lunch would serve him. I'd never had an occasion to inquire into their policy or to observe how they would act if one came in and sat at one of their tables. Remember, this is New York, North, 1946. Things have changed. They have a long way to go. I knew only that most restaurants are far from places of comfort for blacks. About myself, I didn't care, but how the Sam Hill was I going to get him out of this jam without insulting him? And then what seemed a brilliant solution occurred to me. I said, "Well, you are on the way to lunch. Why don't you take me to the place where you are going?" "That's a thought," Billy said, and we changed the direction of our walk. And then I remembered my own problem. Would Billy's restaurant allow Wiz? And who's Wiz? Okay, Wiz is his dog. 1946, before they had laws passed that service dogs could go into restaurants. Okay? I put the question up to him, and it was his turn to be embarrassed for me. He didn't know about the policy of his restaurant regarding dogs. He was shocked at the thought that any restaurant would exclude a man with a seeing eye dog. I had my hand on his arm as we walked, and I felt his muscles stiffen as he said, "They'd better let you in. If they don't, they'll have a little trouble putting that roof back on when I get through raising it." It was a remark that filled me with profound shame. I hadn't offered to raise any roofs for him, yet the reason for his exclusion from the restaurant had infinitely less justification than the reasons for mine. This story may seem more dramatic had we had the argument we expected on reaching the restaurant, but we didn't. We were courteously shown to a table. I put Wiz under it, and we ordered lunch, but it was eaten in silence, both of us being much too preoccupied with the consideration of the separate accidents of fate that made our relations with the world difficult. Walking back to my office, alone with Wiz, my mind was busy with the implications of this whole scene. There was the thought of Billy's kindness. It was no different from that given me by any other man. And had I not been told, in so many words, that he was a man marked out from the majority by his color, I would have attached no undue importance to it. I would not even have sought to detect any difference in him. But there was another thought, one almost terrible in its significance, its importance. Were the whole world blind, there would be no race prejudice. There couldn't be. The only sense which could have told me that Billy is what is called a Negro or black was my sight. No other sense detected any difference. I had nothing but Billy's own word for it. It was a concept shaking to the intellect, shaking to my thought process. The whole structure of the majority-minority relationship was perceived in a clear light. Its foundation is that which can be seen and nothing else. The color of hair, the shade of your skin, the shape of your nose. What can perceive them but the eyes? It takes hearing to perceive what is in the heart and the mind. And civilized man is too busy using his or her eyes to listen. And walking back with Wiz, I remembered another episode, one which, when it happened, filled me with anger, but not with deeper emotion that I had now. I had mentioned the fact that 4 of my fellow students in my second seeing eye class were black. As part of our training with the dogs, we used to take the bus going along Wimpany Road to Morristown, where our trainer would meet us for the day's practice on the street. Morristown is in New Jersey. We would space out our bus taking us to arrive in 2s and 3s. One day, when I found myself with 2 of the black students, the bus passed us without stopping. We didn't know it. We didn't even know that it had gone by until a woman who had observed the driver's behavior from her house across the street came and told us. It seemed incredible that the driver who picked up the students with their dogs at that point each hour or so every morning of the week would not have noticed us. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt until it happened a second time. Then there was little doubt of the deliberateness of the driver's action. Nobody could do much about that driver. He had the excuse that he hadn't seen us, and although everyone knew he was lying, the contrary couldn't be proven. It is easy to set down the words stupidity, ignorance, prejudice, but when they are used about a man whose stupidity, ignorance, and prejudice are such that he will refuse to stop his public vehicle for men who are blind because they happen also to be a race different from his, the words acquire a meaning that causes the heart to constrict, causes your heart to tighten, and nausea to rise into your throat. Nor did the realization that his possession of the blessing of sight gave him the power to inflict his cruelty on us. I'm going to read that again. Nor did the realization that his possession of the blessing of sight gave him the power to inflict his cruelty on us diminish the shame. My classmates made no trouble about it. I was the one who expressed anger I wasn't the direct object of the driver's discrimination, but being touched by it seared my soul. All I had lost was the morning's practice on the streets of Morristown. My classmates had lost something infinitely more important. My black classmates, dignity as human beings. Judging by their calmness, though, they were adjusted. What does that mean? Used to it. Should they be? Should anybody be used to being treated like that? That's the question we're facing now. And suddenly my own task of achieving an adjustment seemed very small indeed. They were both blind and black. I'll continue reading that next time, and I hope you'll join me, because I want to get to one more book, because I have to be someplace in a little bit. But how many of you have a garden? How many of you have ever lived in a city and had a garden? Now, community gardens have become a really big thing now in the city, in elementary schools, on rooftops, all over cities. Chicago and Cleveland and everywhere. City gardens have become a big thing. But this book, one of my favorites, is called The Seedfolks. And I'm going to introduce you to 13 different people from 13 different backgrounds who live in Cleveland. And Cleveland is a big city in, thank you, whoever said that, but I did hear, or I picked it up through my mind, through the airwaves, that you said Ohio. Okay, so this is a story about a community garden, but it wasn't always a community garden. It was an empty lot. Do you know what a lot is? A lot, and thank you for those who said it, but it was too many words for me to pick up. So an empty lot in a city is usually a place that's fenced in, and there's no building there. Maybe there will be, but there isn't. It's grass, it's weeds, it's often garbage. People just throw things, rats. And this is a story about transformation by a community. Okay? 13 voices tell one story of the flowering of a Cleveland vacant lot into a neighborhood garden, cultivated by a group of strangers, old, young, Haitian, Korean, Hispanic, tough, haunted, hopeful. Detailing the garden's founding the first year, Seedfolks is a harvest of hidden lives and a hymn to the power of plants and people. And this is written, if I didn't tell you, by Fleischman. So, first chapter is about Kim. Kim is Vietnamese. And it's a custom in many cultures, Christian and perhaps a Buddhist, that she Buddhist that she is, setting up an altar, like a table at home, where prayers are said and candles are lit right in your own home. My grandma had one. My grandma was Puerto Rican, and she had an altar with statues of saints and candles, and she would say prayers and light the candles, and do that every day. And Kim said, I stood before our family altar. It was dawn, early morning. No one else in the apartment was awake. I stared at my father's photograph, his thin face, his stern lips latched tight, his eyes peering permanently to the right. I was 9 years old and stopped and still hoped that perhaps his eyes in that picture might move and see me, might notice me. The candles and the incense sticks lit the day before to mark his death anniversary had burned out. The rice and the meat offered him were gone. After the evening feast past midnight, I'd been wakened by my mother's crying and my oldest sister joining in. My own tears had then come as well, but for a different reason. Okay, and here, something for the garden. Those are beans. I turned from the altar. I tiptoed to the kitchen and quietly drew a spoon from the drawer. I filled my lunch thermos with water and reached into our jar of dried lima beans, and then I walked outside to the street. The sidewalk was completely empty. And remember, this is in Cleveland. It was Sunday, early April. An icy wind teetered trash cans and turned my cheeks to marble. You know that feeling? Your face feels frozen. And our April was like that this year. In Vietnam, we had no weather like that. Here in Cleveland, people call it spring. I walked half a block and then crossed the street and reached the vacant lot. I stood tall and scouted. No one was sleeping on the old couch in the middle of the lot. Good thing. I'd never entered the lot before or ever wanted to. I did so now, picking my way between tires and trash bags. I nearly stepped on 2 rats, gnawing, and froze. And then I told myself that I must show bravery, and I continued farther and chose a spot far from the sidewalk and hidden from view by a rusty refrigerator. I had to keep my project safe. What is she going to do? Right, she's going to plant those seeds. I took out my spoon and began to dig. The snow had melted, but the ground was hard. After much work, I finished 1 hole, then a second, and then a third. I thought about how my mother and sisters remembered my father, how they knew his face from every angle, and held in their fingers the feel of his hands. I had no such memory to cry over. I'd been born 8 months after he died. Worse, he had no memories of me. When his spirit hovered over our altar, did it even recognize me? Did it even know who I was? I dug 6 holes. All his life in Vietnam, my father had been a farmer. Here, our apartment had no yard, but in that vacant lot, he would see me. He would watch my beans break ground and spread, and he would notice with pleasure their pods growing plump. He would see my patience and my hard work. I would show him that I was his daughter. My class had sprouted lima beans in paper cups the year before. I now placed each bean in each of the holes. I covered them up, pressing the soil down firmly with my fingertips. I opened up my thermos and watered them all, and I vowed to myself that those beans would thrive. Okay, last chapter, and then I'll be back to continue. And this is Anna. Anna's an older woman. You're going to figure out when she was born in just about a minute. So remember, this book is written 1997, 23 years ago. Actually, that's when I moved to Salisbury, 23 years ago. And it's going to show you how people judge without knowing the whole story. So listen carefully. I do love, because we just read about Kim and the wonderful things she wanted to do in her father's memory of him as a farmer, carrying on a tradition and letting him recognize her and know her. A beautiful thing, right? Anna. I'd love to sit and look out the window. Why do I need TV? When I have 48 apartment windows to watch across the vacant lot and a sliver of Lake Erie. I have seen history out of this window, so much. I was 4 years old when we moved here in 1919. When was she born? That's right. She was born in what'd you say? She was 4 years old, 1915. Right, exactly. 1915. If she were to be alive, how old would she be? Come on. All right, somebody said 105. Exactly. 105. Don't think so. But anyway, and Anna said, I looked out the window and there were the fruit seller carts, coal wagons being drawn by horses back then. I used to stand just right here, and watch the coal brought up by the handsome lad from Groza, the village my parents were born in Romania. Gibbs Street was mainly Romanians back then. It was adio, goodbye, in all the shops when you left. And then the Romanians started leaving. They weren't the first or the last. This has always been a working class neighborhood. It's like a cheap hotel you stay in until you have money to leave. A lot of Slovaks and Italians moved in next. Then black families, excuse me, during the Depression. Gibbs Street became the line between the blacks and the whites, like a border between countries. I watched it happen through this very window. I lived over in Cleveland Heights for 18 years, and then I moved back into the neighborhood to take care of my parents. And that border moved too. Most all the whites left. Then the steel mills and the factories closed, and everybody left like rats. Excuse me. Buildings were abandoned, men with no work, down in the street, down in the lot. There were always sirens, people killing each other, and now I see families from Mexico and Cambodia and countless other countries. I don't know, 12 people sometimes in one apartment. Excuse me. I don't know. 12 people sometimes in one apartment. New languages in the shops and on the streets. These new people leave when they can, just like all the others. I'm the only one staying. It's so. Staying and staring out this same window. This spring I looked out and I saw something strange. Down in the lot, a little black-haired girl hiding behind that refrigerator. She was working at the dirt and looking around suspiciously all the time. And then I realized she was burying something. I never had children of my own, but I've seen enough to know that she was mixed up with something that she shouldn't be. And after 20 years typing for the parole department, she worked for the police, I just about knew what she buried. Drugs, most likely, or money, or even a gun. The next moment, she disappeared like a rabbit. I thought of calling the police, but then I saw her there the next morning, and I decided I would solve the case myself. We had a long spell of rain then. I didn't set eyes on her once. And then the weather turned warm, and I saw her twice more, always in the morning, on her way to school. She was crouched down with her back to me, so I couldn't see just what she was doing. My curiosity was like a fever inside me. Then one morning, she was there glancing about, and she looked straight up at this window. I pulled my head back in behind the curtain. I wasn't sure if she'd seen me. If she had, she wouldn't leave her treasure buried long, and then I knew I would have to dig it up before she did. God, she could write a book because she's made up a whole story that's not true, right? I waited an hour after she left, and then I took an old butter knife and my cane, and I hobbled down all 3 flights of stairs. I worked my way through the awful jungle of junk and finally came to her spot. I stooped down. It was wet there and easy digging. I hacked and dug, but I didn't find anything, except for a large white bean. Oh no! I tried a new spot and found another, then a third, and then the truth of it slapped me full in the face. What have you done? 2 beans had already rooted. I knew I had done them harm. I felt like I'd read through her secret diary and had ripped out a page without meaning to. I laid those beans right back into the ground as gently as sleeping babies, and then I patted the soil and smoothed it as carefully as I could. The next morning she was back. I peeled back the curtains. She didn't look up here or give any sign that she noticed something was wrong. I could see her clearly this time. She reached a hand into her school bag, and then she pulled out a jar. She unscrewed it, and she poured water onto the ground. That afternoon, I bought some binoculars. Okay, the next chapter we're going to learn about Wendell. Okay, but not today. So I will continue this maybe later today, maybe tomorrow, but I hope you enjoy it or have enjoyed it. And please keep in touch. Email me, and I hope to see you at the library very soon. Keep reading. Summer reading program is starting soon. We're having our kickoff ice cream party June 25th, 2 weeks from today. You'll get more information about that. You can get all your summer reading material, reading logs, and all of that. And take good care and be kind.